Hey everyone, I'm Joe and today it's time for me to talk about the 2017 book statistics. Now I did this same kind of video about 2016 and I personally thought it was rather interesting and certainly very useful to know exactly what I was reading and then figure out why. Other booktubers do this kind of video as well, well some of them anyway, and I always find it interesting when others do it as well. So I thought I would do it again for 2017. However, with one interesting and rather important addition this year, hence why the title is called Book Statistics, not just Reading Statistics, because I am both including the reading of books and the purchasing of books as well. So there's going to be two parts, because I think having a look at how many books I buy and when I buy them and things could prove rather interesting and extremely beneficial, because then I can work out if I've got certain patterns, and possibly that should help me to hopefully reduce my book buying, because it is rather high, I have to admit, even before I start, because yeah, and I would like to reduce it a bit, not too much but a bit anyway. So as you can see, I've moved the camera in preparation for graphs, although this first few numbers do not have a graph to go with them, and that is simply, and I'll start with the reading stats, the total number of books read in 2017 is 195 by my own personal records, or 203 by the Goodreads count. Goodreads is counting a few things that I'm personally not, for reasons I'm not going to bother going into. Now, as far as pages read is concerned, I read 68,240 pages, which is considerably higher than the year before, or probably any other year in my entire life, I suspect. I mean, obviously, I've only been keeping track of statistics for the last couple of years, so I know, but I have a feeling this is probably about the highest I've ever read in 1 year, at least for a very long time, maybe since I was younger. So I'm quite happy with this. Now I'll talk about the first statistic, which actually has a nice graph to go with it, and that is the books read per month. And as you can see by the graph, this is fairly consistent, with a slight drop towards the end of the year. Frankly, that drop towards the end of the year is to be expected. It's happened the last few years, I believe, and that's simply because at the end of the year I'm doing various, obviously, sort of tend to try to tidy up both real life things and obviously booktube things. I'm doing the end of year type videos, which obviously this is one, so I tend to read slightly less, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm not bothered in the slightest, because things need to get done, especially these kind of things. So it's just a case of I'll read a bit less, but I'll get stuff done. Next up, we have the genre breakdown, and this one is one that is not very interesting because it's so predictable, but it's still nice to see, just for completeness. And as you can see by the graph, science fiction dominates really, really heavily, with a certain amount of fantasy and thrillers thrown in to not let that dominate as completely. And the thing I'm most happy to see is that mystery and crime does actually make an appearance on this graph more than ever before. It's actually got a decent, noticeable and indeed seeable block of colour on the graph. So I'm quite happy that I've got into it, and frankly I'm also surprised that I've got into mystery and crime, because it's not a genre that I had ever suspected I would like, but in the last year I've been trying it more and got into it rather heavily, and now I'm reading it on a almost regular basis, so I'm quite happy with this. The next stat is the stat that I'm most pleased with, and that is the author gender. Now, as you can see by the graph, I have managed to somehow get an almost dead even 50-50 male to female split of authors, which is frankly remarkable. I don't know how I achieved this, frankly, other than the fact I do know that I read several long series by certain female authors in 2017. It was something that I wanted to fix a bit, because in previous years this was really, really bad, and now I've managed to get it dead even split. And indeed, this is one of my goals for 2018, to maintain this ratio, which is going to be very difficult for reasons that, well, for one thing, most of the books you can see behind on my shelves are by male authors, so yeah, this is going to be an interesting one to do. Next up is the author origin, and this is where the author was born in, not where they happen to live for a long period of time. I had to make some kind of distinction, so I based it entirely on when they were born. regardless of, even if they moved when they were young to another country and lived there since it was where they were born only. And as you can see by the graph, this isn't that exciting of a stat because frankly the USA dominates really heavily with a large amount of the UK as well, and then every other country, which is there's not many of, there's like 7 or 8 of them, has a tiny little portion of their own, which is a bit, I know, it looks odd, I think, for a graph being so dominated by 2 big chunks, but I'm not surprised in the slightest, especially with some of the others that I've been reading. So yeah, this is just one of them things. I would like to make it not quite as American dominated, but I'm not going to completely alter the books I read just for that fact. So yeah, if I can fix it, I will. If not, it's not a main problem anyway. Next is the page length of books, and as you can see by the graph, I actually read a slightly larger amount of shorter books than longer books, which I'm kind of surprised about because I used to think that I read a lot more bigger, heftier books, like 600, 700 plus books, and yet, relatively speaking, I really don't. Most of the books that you can see are between 200 to 500. There's a large amount there, and everything else is relatively low, which doesn't surprise me, again, considering certain authors that I've been reading, especially with some of these big long-running series that I've read, do tend to run into the sort of roughly 400 page count. But still, I thought there'd be slightly more larger books. But it's just one of them things. The penultimate stat is the year the book was published, and as you can see, I have actually read a quite large amount of newer books, but I haven't forgotten the older books because there is a decent amount of them, and I've actually managed to get every single sort of decade read at least one book by. In most cases, quite a few more than one, in fact. But the fact that I've read so many newer books surprises me because I used to think before I joined BookTube that I read a lot of older books, but apparently I don't, or at least I don't anymore. I don't know how much this has changed over the years. I think it has changed a fair bit though, but I could be mistaken about this. But there's no really way of knowing, unfortunately. Although, obviously now that I'm doing videos like this and obviously keeping record of it, I will know in 5 years' time if my reading has changed and how. And the final stat is more for curiosity and frankly my own amusement, because that is the books read per publisher. And frankly, I had a very strong prediction what the primary publisher that I read in 2017 would be, and as you can see, there is one publisher that absolutely dominates, and that is Gollancz. If you didn't know, Gollancz is probably the biggest science fiction and fantasy publisher within the UK, really, that specialise in science fiction and fantasy, and obviously that is the large amount of what I read. So the fact that these two things go together, yeah, this isn't going to surprise anybody. I mean, I know the Gollancz staff members as well. I actually know quite a few of them by name. So this doesn't surprise me. This shouldn't surprise, frankly, anybody who's known me for any length of time, because the amount of Gollancz books I actually own on my shelf behind me is frankly enormous at this point. So that's it for the stats about all the books I've read. Now on to the ones about the book buying. And some of these I am almost scared to tell you because, well, they're not very nice, frankly. And indeed, the first few stats haven't got a graph because those are the basic numbers. And that is the total amount of books gained in 2017 was 178, with 25 of those being either gifts or by the publisher. So I actually purchased 153 books myself. And next is the one stat number that I'm a bit scared to say, and that is the amount of money I spent on books in 2017. Yeah, this seems quite high to me, because this is £946.24. Or if you were to translate this to American dollars, it would be roughly $1,250 on books in a year. Yeah, that seems quite a lot to me, and it's slightly higher than I would like to see. Although, frankly, about a third of that amount is very focused at the end of the year on a very particular set of books, which I won't be buying again, obviously, because I've already bought them, and So this number should be a lot less in 2018. I'm pretty much certain it will be, because that was a very specific project I had in mind, and that did cost me quite a lot of money, which I'm happy to spend, especially because obviously it's a one-off, so I don't have to do it again. It's, over and done with. The first stat that has a graph to go with it is the books purchased over time. And as you can see, the books started off a little bit higher at the start of the year, then it dipped towards the middle, and then it shot back up. Basically, this U shape is pretty normal for me. I think it's been the same for the previous year as well. And although I haven't been tracking it, I'm fairly confident that this has always been the case with me. For some reason, I always buy more books at either end of the year, and towards the middle of the year, which is surprising considering my birthday's in June, I tend to buy and receive a lot less books than normal. I don't know why, it just seems to be a weird trend. Maybe I'm planning other things in the middle of the year and that affects my book buying. I'm not really sure. So it's a curious one this week, I think. Next up is the genre breakdown, and again, like the books I read, this isn't all that surprising. Science fiction and fantasy dominates, with a significant amount as well of both fantasy and thrillers, with a reasonable amount of crime and thrillers, although that amount I believe has increased slightly, which is quite interesting and really not surprising, obviously considering my reading tastes have slowly been evolving, as they always do over time, of course. Next, there is the book purchased location. Now, I find this one quite interesting because other than Amazon, which has obviously a large share, a quarter of the graph in fact is Amazon, although that is entirely ebooks. I have not bought one physical book from Amazon in 2017, and to be honest, if it weren't for ebooks, Amazon would not be on this list whatsoever. I don't like Amazon as a company. And also, Amazon are expensive for physical books as well. They're actually one of the more expensive sellers of books now, so it's just ebooks for Amazon. Everybody else, though, I find it interesting because it is the 3 UK-based sellers that dominate overall. W.H. Smith, Waterstones, and the Book People, which are all UK-based, indeed, originally created in the UK and are still based in the UK. They're the ones that dominate. So I'm quite happy that I've managed to buy a large amount of my books from UK-based people. This makes me happy, and I would like to continue this trend, or ideally improve it. Although, what with Amazon being responsible for my ebook reading, obviously, what with the fact I've got a Kindle, it's not likely to just drop my Amazon percentages. So it's always going to be competing against a large amount of Amazon for ebooks, frankly. I mean, I do like ebooks as well, so this isn't going to change too drastically, I don't think. The next stat, as you can see, is my author gender split. And this one I'm most happy about yet again, like the reading stat, because it is an almost dead even 50-50 male to female split. This stat will probably change a bit in 2018, because to maintain the books read split of 50-50 between male and female, I will need to buy, or obtain anyway, an awful lot of books by female authors, because the amount of books I've got on my shelves are primarily by male authors. So I'm going to have to buy an awful lot of books by female authors, which I'm completely happy with, because I've got a whole pile of female authors in mind that I want to try out, and I expect I will greatly like. So this isn't a problem, and it's quite an interesting one, and one that makes me happy these days. And now we're on to the final stat already. There is less stats for the book buying than there is for the book reading. And that final stat is purchased per publisher. And again, this isn't a very important stat as such, although it is quite an interesting one, and it does amuse me highly, because one publisher dominates yet again. And as you can see by the graph, this is even more hilarious than the first graph, because now Gollancz dominates almost 50% of every book I obtained in 2017 were by them, which is frankly remarkable. I mean, when you're talking about 178 books obtained, and almost half of them are by one publisher, Gollancz, that's a pretty remarkable statistic, and frankly, it looks and creates a rather laughable graph because it just looks so dominated. I really like this graph because it just makes me smile, because I know that I like Gollancz, and seeing it proved so blatantly on one graph is frankly great. It just really makes me smile. So with that said, that is it for my stats of 2017. It was a good year as far as stats go. I read a large amount of really good books. I managed to maintain a really good even male to female author ratio, which was frankly the biggest thing I was trying to focus on this year. Maintaining that in 2018 is one of my main goals. It's also going to be one of my main challenges because, like I said, it's not going to be easy, but I will manage it because I always do. Anyway, let me know if you've got any particular interesting stats, like what your male to female author ratio is, or if you've read a particularly unusual amount of genres in a particular way, genres that you might not have otherwise read. I will link an interesting graph that Brock made, a fellow booktube made, that some people use to monitor their stats. I've made my own graph, which I've based off of Brock's, inspired by Brock, so thank you to him for making that, because it's inspired me to actually get better at spreadsheets once again. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.